Hey, greetings. Welcome to another tutorial. This is about Unreal Sequencer and more about Spawnables versus Possessables. I'm Erica Pink, and hopefully you've seen the last tutorial because it will help you get jump started for what we'll be adding on to the sequence today. And let me give you a teaser of what we're working on. So you should recognize the sequence from last time, but the little mini mesh that's getting squished, we will be adding that today. So there is that. And we'll do a little bit of a level sequence review and talk about the implications of different ways in creating level sequences and clarify why we did something the way that we did in the previous tutorial, and then go over the definitions of spawnables versus possessables, when to use one versus the other, how to problem solve a little bit, and we'll get some of that in our practice hands-on. So level sequence, that is the container for your cinematic scene. So if I go into Unreal, I've got my third person template. I brought in my yin character from last time, and I'm in a very basic default level right here. And let me go into this intro to sequencer end. So that represents the end of last lesson. Let me go into that level, and it's a corresponding level sequence. And your file structure might be a little different, but I'm just trying to give you a visual. So here we go. Here's our sequence. And if you don't have the sequencer tab open, go up to Window, Cinematics, Sequencer right there. And we've got different tracks, and that is a level sequence. And sequences can know what level they're in, or they might not. And that's what I mean by level binding right here. And the different way that you make a level sequence can affect that. So what am I talking about? All right. So in the last tutorial, up in the toolbar, we did cinematics, add level sequence. And then that created a level sequence in here. And then, let's see, yeah. So then it showed up in the level. And then if I right click on it, it says, hey, I know what level I'm in. I'm in Intro to Sequencer End. And so it is associated with the level. It knows what it's pointing to. But if I were to, let's say, add new, you don't have to do this, but add new animation level sequence. Blah, because I'm going to delete this in 2 seconds. Notice how it does not have a map associated with it. And so it is like flying solo. It's unbound. It could be reused in different levels. I could drag this into this level right here. And then once I hit save, the blah level sequence will also be bound to this level. And then I could drag it into another level as well. And then it would list the multiple levels. So just think about that when you're creating level sequences actually. And it'll just help you avoid some confusion and anticipate things. So now you know a little bit more about that. So right here, yeah, update it after the save. Good. Okay. So let's get rid of this guy. Delete folder. I just want to get rid of. Let me just get rid of blah. Okay. And then let me delete you. And that's fine. And then I'm fixing my redirectors because I like to keep things nice and tidy. Right, where were we? Okay. Last time I said, hey, add your actors first to the level, then create your level sequence. And you may or may not have wondered why. The short answer is it prevents you from making mistakes. You might accidentally create a spawned actor if you don't do this. And, if you create a spawned actor, you want to make sure that you know that you're doing that for a reason, right? So, all right, here's where you can start following along a little bit. So in my maps, wherever you have your maps, you can either work in the same level, or I like to work iteratively. Iteratively, yes. And so what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I'm going to duplicate the level I had from last time. And it will be like making this one right here. I'm going to call it demo. You could call it Spawnables versus Possessables if you want. So duplicate or Control W. And I'm just going to call this demo so I can tidy things up later. And let me make sure I get yes, you. Okay, my keystrokes. Good. So if I do Control W, you can actually see it. Perfect. Okay. So here is, let's go into demo. I don't need to save anything. Okay. All right. Great. So I am in level demo. Good, good, good. So I already have my actors added first. Now I'm actually going to duplicate a level sequence. And let me explain Possessables and Spawnables first. So all we've done is duplicate a level. Good. All right. So Possessables are what we used a lot in the last tutorial. They live in the level. They are possessed or changed by the sequencer, and they don't exist in the sequence. So, you can see them in the level, and they are persnickety, and they want to make sure that the correct level is open. Otherwise, the text will be red and it'll complain. And Spawnables, they, on the other hand, they don't live in the level. They live in the sequence. They can be, reused in multiple different levels, because sequences can be used in different levels too. And they have that spawned attribute, which is how our little mesh is going to disappear. We're going to keyframe that, and then once the sequence ends, then the spawnable is automatically removed. So they don't persist. They're only there as long as the sequence is. And okay, there's this new thing, spawnable. When should we use it? Okay. So, if you have something that you're reusing over and over again, that would be a good candidate. Something, like an explosion or props or something in front of the camera. Something else could be, if you need some temporary additional light that you don't need in the other shots, or you've got a character that, beams down, and there needs to be a light for the UFO or something that's dropping down the person. It doesn't persist for a long time. It's just on off. And then you could do cameras. For this tutorial, I am going to use spawnable cameras just to stick with the theme. You can do it either way. If a camera is spawnable versus living in the scene, you could track your cameras by the level sequence, rather than having to remember, okay, which level was I using again? And then you can reuse the fancy camera moves that you did. And notice in this graphic right here, if I were to drag something from, that modes panel directly into the sequencer, it will create something that's spawnable. But if it already existed in the level and then you drag that in, then it's possessable. And if you change your mind, never fear, you can actually right click and convert one type to the other, because we don't always know what we're doing. until we're actually realizing we need to do it a little differently. And let's see here, double check. Oh yeah, so if you were to convert from a possessable to a spawnable, so it was living in the level and you want it to be something that can be reused, or you know, spawns needs to disappear or something, I would double check to see if another sequence potentially in the same level is trying to use it too, because if you switch it from possessable to spawnable, then you might have some issues. You probably would need to go into that other sequence and then reassign it and fix it. It's doable, just be aware. And for instance, if you want to make sure that you're ahead of the game, you can right click on an asset, and it's the reference viewer. And I believe it's Alt-Shift-R. Let me double check here. Let me go, so slide 11, Alt-Shift-R. Yep, I remembered. So that would be the hotkey to bring up that menu, and then you would be on your merry way. Great. So where are we at? We've got our demo level, and we've got, these are some actors already in the scene, so they will be possessables. We could make them spawnables, but for this, we'll keep them as is because it's a really good habit. It's a really good habit. Okay. So the way that I want to, do this practice part, we're going to duplicate the level sequence that we made from the previous lesson. So let's do that first. And then what I'm explaining on this slide is, okay, this sequence right up in here, right here, it is bound to that previous level. But if I duplicate it, Control W, yeah, see, there it is. Okay, and I'm calling this demo. If I right click on it, it doesn't have a level association because Unreal doesn't know if you want to make another level sequence for that same level or put it somewhere else. It lets you set it up later. And I'm going to stay nice and organized, so I'm not going to keep it there. I'm going to make a demo folder, Control Shift New, demo, and then I'm going to put the level sequence that I just made and drag it in there, move, and I like keeping things tidy. I am fixing up redirectors like my life depended on it. Okay, so going to open that up. Okay, so I am in my duplicated level sequence that I just made. And, I'm scrubbing through here, but I'm not seeing any animation. So let me click in here and, oh no, I've got some red text. So let's think about this. What did we just do? We duplicated a level, and, the names of these actors are identical, but they are in different levels, and we duplicated the level sequence from the previous level. And it just so happens that this level sequence, it's pointing to things in the previous level, right? So even though the names are the same, you would think it would be able to find it, but no. But we can fix this. This is fine. So what I'm going to do, if I were to fix this in these shots right here, the previous level sequence would be receiving these updates as well. And I, again, like to work iteratively, and, I don't have source control going on right here. So I really do need to just have lots and lots of files. So in case I don't like my changes, I've got breadcrumbs. With source control, maybe I could just start working in this shot and I'd be okay. But that's not the case for this right now. So what I'm going to do is right click on this. And I could either create a new take or I could duplicate the shot. If I were maybe just, doing a different camera angle or the timing's different or something, maybe I would create a new take And for instance, this second shot, it has 2 different takes right here. And I like this one better. But since I'm changing the content, I'm adding something, I'm going to right click, duplicate. Okay, now notice how it's trying to put it in this file structure up here from the previous. And you could probably be fine with just putting it in here, but I'm going to stay organized and I'm going to make a similar file structure over here. That way when I'm done, I can just get rid of my demo folder, start all over, it's all tidy. But you might have different considerations. So here we go. Right click, new folder. So I'm just looking at, okay, shots. And then I'm duplicating the first one. So Control Shift, new shot 0010. All right, in here. And I could, maybe, I've got between 10 and 20. Maybe I'll call this one 15. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here and fix some stuff. So I'm going to click on this matte preview, right click, and assign whatever is selected. Or you could go in and find it. Okay. And then Yin right here, click on her. What am I doing? Click on her. There we go. Right click, assign, and let's do it the other way too. I can go down to Yin as well. All right. So I'm going to get rid of our old shot and I'm going to put this one in. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to rename it and give it a little SP at the end, just so I remember this is the spawned version. Think about what you may or may not want to do for yours. Okay. So here we go. We've got some animation. All right. And let's go into this one. I'm clicking around. Okay. I'm going to right click on the second one. We're just focusing on the first 2 shots. Duplicate. I'm going to go down to my demo folders and make a, let's try that again. Control Shift new. Shot 0020. Nope. Shot. All right. Okay. So this one's between 20 and 30. Maybe I'll do this one 25. And not 125. And then give it SP. Okay, so there's that guy down here. Let's get rid of you. Put you in there. And if these had been spawnables from the get-go, we wouldn't have to do this process. But by doing it the tedious way first, it helps you think about how you set things up later, right? So I am adding the matte mesh, and I am right-clicking on Zine and adding her. Okay, so look, big difference. Animation. Wah. Okay. So let's just focus on these 2. So I'm going to get rid of these. And then go to the end. And what I just did, I hit that bracket. Whoops. And then period, that takes you to the end, or like to the next marker, if you will. And then I'm doing that little bracket again to set the in point, out point. Okay, so we've got these two. Boing, boing, boing. Okay, good. So we've made a new level sequence. We have gotten some new shots so that we don't mess stuff up in previous things. We reassigned actors, so we fixed the red text. We fixed the animation that wasn't coming through. You could also use this if, let's say we converted the possessable yin to a spawnable, but a different level sequence was using it, and then you're having to reassign the actors to just fix the fact that you didn't realize, you didn't use the asset viewer to see that it was referenced before you did the conversion. So just anticipating your workflow can help avoid this, but there is this feature to help you navigate that. Okay. So what I like to do when we add the little squished character is add another content browser. So believe it or not, you can add up to 4 content browsers. Cool. So I'm adding that over here. I like to have it next to my world settings. And let me go up to the very top. Okay. Now I want to find this static mesh right here. So I do static mesh, and maybe I type in Matt, or not me, Matt. Okay. Now I could drag this in somewhere and notice that it's a spawnable. Ta-da! Woo! Okay. But we have to think about, where are we putting this? Am I going to put this in this master sequence? Should I put them, put one in this shot and another in this shot? I could, especially if, there's lots of ways to do this, but if for whatever reason you think that what you're adding is going to affect the timing of your shots, what I like to do is I'll work with my keyframes in this master sequence. It's just a level sequence, but then after I've been, adjusting the timing right here, rather than having to recopy frames, I can actually just copy this guy into the individual shots once I'm done messing with the keyframes, and then I just have to copy it over once. I don't have to keep copying it every single time I realize that I've screwed up my timing again because I'm, futzing with things trying to make it better. Let's see y'all. So let's see if I've missed anything. So let me at least show you that process of copy pasting. So let's see here. So I've got this little, okay, so here's our dude. Wanna. Okay. And then I'm gonna drag that, and I'm looking at my camera view and trying to drive. Going to hit, let's see, sometimes the end key works, sometimes it doesn't. And getting it to place nicely. There we go. Okay. On the ground. And then maybe move that over. And that definitely needs to be scaled down, right? I don't know, 0.2 or something. Okay. Now I'm going to be sneaky. So I'm actually going to have this mesh be a little bigger in this scene so that, there's a better silhouette. And then in the next shot, it's going to be a little smaller to better go with the motion. And I'm going to move it a little bit too so that it is in a good spot for the foot. Maybe another tutorial I could work on, editing motion rather than working around it. But that's another tutorial. And let's see here. So, and then I can, rotate it so we can see the nice logo And then I'm going to put a keyframe on this transform. And because sometimes if I try to copy this over without a keyframe, it will remember where it just dropped it, and then you'd have to fix the position again, and we don't need to do rework. That's not good. So let me just, I'll copy that over for now. I know it's just one keyframe, but bear with me. So you can just right click, copy, or so I've got this selected, Control C. I'm going to go in here, make sure I am still actively in the sequencer. I didn't accidentally click anything in the viewport, and then Control V. And I think there it is, yeah. So the true test will be, if I delete this, is it still there? Boing. Okay. So there it is. So that's what I mean by, you start in the master, and let's go in here. And I actually need to get it a little lower. Okay. And I've got auto key on, so it should have that. Let's make sure I don't have any funkiness. Okay. Okay, so we got a little bit of popping. Let's figure this out. So I'm going to go to my keyframe, and I'm going to hit end. And then I'm really going to key you instead of relying on, there we go, auto key. Okay, perfect. So that's one way of doing it. Yeah, so I'm just trying to keep the master sequence clean. And if you're using source control like Perforce and you've got a bunch of people, maybe you can't actually check out the whole thing. I mean, this is, however many shots, and then other people might be working on that. So you could create a subscene, and that is something that helps you get around source control so that you could, maybe get access to something that you might not if you didn't do that with source control going on. So that is a workaround, something to think about. But let me undo that. Burp. Let me redo. And then let me just right click, delete. Okay. Now, going to collapse that a little bit. So let me double check my slides, make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, so this is more the method of what I'm doing, since I like the timing. Okay, so I'm going to just add, I just added something to the shot, and then I'll copy it over to the next shot, make some changes. And something to remember, and this kind of applies to both methods, and this is not exhaustive. I'm sure there's other ways to do this that I'm not even thinking of. So feel free to let me know, hey, I actually did it this way, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So I have 2 SM matte preview mesh things. And I've run into issues where if I don't change this name, if I were to, let's change the material on this guy. Dum-de-dum, a little bit lower. Okay, let's change element 0. Now, what I'm about to do, some of you might really, I'm hitting the wrong button. Okay, let's do this one right here. Yeah. I'm just going to do, there's a red material that Ian has that will really pop. You'll be able to see it. This one. But the UVs are so wrong. This was not meant for this material. So for you material people, I'm sorry, but deal with it. This is not a materials class. Okay, so if I were to copy this over into the next shot, if I don't rename this, sometimes it won't remember that I changed the material, and if I make a change, I want the change to transfer. So do yourself a favor and let's rename this. So we'll call it mini mat. All right. And then I've already mentioned, it helps to have at least one keyframe, even if you don't have animation. So let's try that. So I have what I need in this shot. So I'm going to take mini mat, going to copy and paste into here. Okay, there's mini mat. And okay. Whew, for a second I thought, no, it didn't transfer, but it did. Okay, my frame range was just before the play in for this shot. So don't panic. Okay. So we've got this one and then this one. And I'm going to cheat the rotation on this one. Shh. All right. I want to be able to see the logo a bit. So I am expanding my tree view, and the keyframes that I had were from the previous shot. So what I could do is actually I could take these, I believe, let's grab all of them. So transform, I'm expanding all of these. Okay, I'm grabbing all these. And I'm gonna see if it'll let me do this. So new hotkey, Control arrow, you can move things over. There we go. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna zoom in. I'm a control middle mousing. And then using the comma to get to this keyframe. Okay, so rotation. Maybe make you a little bit more like that. So let's see if that's stuck. Okay, good. And then hitting the comma again. Like I said, I'm going to cheat the location. Make it, let's see, a little closer to where she's actually stomping. So maybe something like that. We'll see. And then I can actually get rid of that previous keyframe. I don't need it to animate. That works. Okay. Now, scale. It's a little big. So let's make everything a little smaller. So I'm clicking in this value, or I could go over to the details panel, go over here and say 0.15, making everything a little smaller. Okay. And then getting rid of these keys so that it's not shrinking too soon. Now, I don't know why sometimes this material looks a little pinkish versus red. Maybe it's just on my computer, but we will move on. Okay, so here's our smush location. Okay. And now it's just a matter of doing the keyframes, right? So from, let's say, frame 55, I want the scale to start at 0.15, and then maybe at frame 60, have it be, let's find out, I don't know. We'll try 0.03 and try that. Okay, now obviously I need to get rid of that keyframe. Okay, so let's see what we got. Blink. I'm trying to see if I like the position that I put this in. Not really. I want to move it a little closer. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to move these keys to the same spot so that I can just slide this over and auto key will do a good job. Okay. All right, I can live with that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to finesse this as much as my final animation, but you'll get the gist. And maybe I will do the new shortcut again. So I'm going to do Control Right, and now all of these keys are all in the same frame. So I'm just nudging it over. All right, so we got the stomp down. Boink. And I will finesse the curves of that in a bit, but next thing is I want it to kind of expand a little bit after it's getting squished. So I'm going to go to maybe about here after she's finished doing the foot. Maybe like right here. And I'm going to have the scale right here. I don't know, maybe 0.175 and 0.175. Okay. And maybe the height has squished ever so slightly. So it's gotten bigger and a little bit squished. 0.02. Did I type that right? Okay, yeah. So let me hit escape so you can see. So, okay. Hit play. All right. Needs work, but I'm okay with it. And then I want, what do I want? I want there to be a little bit of time before this actually disappears. So maybe after she's lifted her foot a bit, I want to, see the little character for a bit longer. So I'm going to Control C, Control V, copy, paste those frames, boink, right? Okay. And then it needs to disappear, right? I like to have at least 4 frames for something to register. So I'm just nudging over a little bit, and that's just the right arrow. I want the scale to be 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so 0, 0, 0. So that's it going poof, disappearing. And this is about spawnables. So let's actually deal with the spawn part, right? Okay, so this is where I want it to disappear. So I'm going to keyframe that and then go, I'm going to click in my sequencer. I'm going to hit left and go back a frame, and then keyframe that it's actually there. Okay. So let's watch what we got. All right. So, I could go and look at the scale. And so I've got a slide where I'm just saying, hey, click this button and do stuff. So here's some of my keys. And, maybe I want, let's check. So the foot, I think this needs to shrink a little bit faster, right? So maybe from here. Because I think the foot's going through a bit too much. So I can kind of speed this up a bit. All right. Still goes through a little bit, but I don't want it to drop. Let's try that. Okay, so maybe this keyframe needs to be a little lower. So maybe if I go back to sequencer, instead of 0.03, maybe 0.02 or something. And then I can change those later. Maybe I'll just drop these so that it does actually shrink a little bit. Okay, so the foot doesn't look like it's getting eaten by the mini mesh anymore, so that's better. And then another thing I added was on the X and Y, I changed I gave it a little bit of buoyancy. So let's try, so it just kind of goes whoop, a little bit more. And let's see, so what I'm doing is I'm changing the tangent type. So if I wanted something to hold until a certain point, I could use the constant tangents, or I can break the tangent so that maybe on one side, let's see what would be good. Maybe I could break this tangent so that this side and this side are independent, and then maybe this side's automatic, but this side, maybe I want the rate to be different or something, but I'm going to undo that. So that's something that you can do. But you can multi-select fast scaling of the curves, etc. Retime tool, they come in handy. Okay, I could make this a little bit better, but I think you get the gist of using the sequence curves, spawnables, problem solving a little bit. Here's a bunch of hotkeys that I was using. And yeah, a bunch of these, a lot. Okay, so let's take a look-see. So we've got those two shots. We've got our spawnable, it's getting squished, it's disappearing. I could render this out, go up here, render this movie. It's going to be named whatever the sequence name is. Capture movie. Sure, we'll save. Okay, open up the capture. And there we go, that little sequence. And so I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you, practice and figure out, okay, what would happen if I made this a spawnable versus a possessable, and, just try and experiment, and no matter what, you're going to learn. So thanks so much, and I hope you enjoyed.